In this lesson we're going to learn the basics of bar chords and different types of chords used with electric guitar when you're playing rhythms. Let's take a look at them now. Now let's start off with looking at an E major chord. It's played like that. And let's look at an E minor chord where we lift off our first finger and get a minor sounding chord. Now the E chord, as you know, is characterized by its particular shape of the fingers of the left hand. E major being like this, E minor being with the first finger lifted off. Now the name of the chord, the root of the chord, is the open sixth string, which as you know is an E. So that's giving us our name. The shape is determining whether it's an E major or an E minor. Now, when barring a chord, you have to place your first finger across the fret at any different fret that you prefer. And what I'd like you to do is think about how you can bar and then form an E major shape. Like this, or if I move up one, like this. And if I want a minor version of the chord, I simply lift off my middle finger to get a minor sounding chord. Now the question is, how do we name these chords along the neck? Although we're using the same shapes we've borrowed from E major and E minor, you can hear that when I play E down at the first position, and then I say bar at the third position and play an E chord, it still sounds like a major chord, but I've shifted the pitch upwards. In other words, E sounds a little lower in pitch, and this chord that we haven't named yet seems a little higher in pitch. Now, how do we name this chord here at the third fret? Well, let's take a look. Now, when you climb along the neck on one string, we'll take the open E. The way we climb along and name the notes is like this. E is open. That means we don't have to press here as if that was a fret. It's just a nut that locks the note into place. But if we think of that as a fret, from E to F, we just climb up one fret. So that would be E. This is F. From F to G, which is our next note up in the alphabet, will be two frets, or a whole step. In between, we have a note which has two different names. That would be G flat, if you think of it as being flats go this way and sharps go this way, or from F, our middle note in between F and G, will be an F sharp. So we have F, we have G, and in the middle we have either, we can call it G flat or F sharp. So, when I'm here, we have an E. If I bar on my first fret, form an E major shape, it really isn't E anymore, although the shape looks identical, it's become an F, because we've increased the pitch at that point. If I go up one more fret, that will be F sharp major, and finally, the chord we were looking for to try and name, we have a G major. So, when we're barring on the neck, a lot of the times we use the E major and E minor shape, and in order to name it, we have to learn how to climb up. E to F is always one fret, F to G is 2, G to A is 2, A to B is 2, and B to C is only 1 again. Rather like the notes on the piano, if you're familiar with a keyboard, there are no black notes between E and F and B and C. Now, let's take a look at another bar chord that we can use. We'll start off using the A major shape and the A minor shape. You'll notice that A minor looks rather like E major. It's just been positioned a string down. So instead of being here, I'm down a string. This is my A minor chord, and this is my A major chord. And as you can hear, just to mention this, major chords, of course, always sound happy. Minor chords sound a bit sad. Now, once again, we use the same idea for finding this chord when it's barred on the neck. Now, let's start with a A minor chord shape. If this is A minor, that's our shape. The root note, or the name of our chord, is actually the open fifth string, which is here, our A. Now if we climb up 2 frets, A, A sharp, B, we can bar here and form an A minor shape, but if we listen to this, that has now been moved up, higher in pitch. We've gone from A to B, we form the shape, and now that will be a B minor chord. We're going to take a look now at the A major chord barred on the neck. Now A major, in the first position, is played by placing the fingers just like this, which is a bit of a squash on an electric guitar, given the fact that the width of the neck is quite narrow. So typically, when you bar this chord on the neck, you really dispense with the idea of using these 3 fingers, and you select your 3rd finger and bar across the 4th, 3rd and 2nd string. Now most of you that try this might find this rather difficult. There are a few things to bear in mind when doing this chord. The little finger will probably tend to want to go under the neck. This is something you want to avoid if you can. And some people's 3rd finger have difficulty in bending like this, and you usually want a little bit of a bend. If that's a problem, don't worry about flattening it out straight across the fret, because a lot of times when you're barring this chord and playing it, you don't necessarily have to hit the 1st string. Ideally though, if you can bend it sufficiently so the 1st string is covered by the 1st finger that's barring here, that would be even preferable, like that. Now let's try naming this chord along the neck. Remember back here, just to recap, we have an A major. It's characterized by the shape. It's happy sounding as opposed to our A minor, which looks like this. And the name of the chord, the root note or the key note, is the open 5th string. So that means wherever we bar across the neck, the name of the chord will be where we are barring, which fret we are barring on, and what that note is at the 5th string. So let's bar at the 2nd fret and form our chord like this rather than like this. So we'll bar here, and we have climbed up in pitch from here to here. So from A, we go A sharp, or B flat, and then B. So this would in fact be a B major chord. And I may point out that although you try and hit the strings from the 5th string down, because that's the key note here, I am actually covering the 6th string with my finger. The reason why is, if you just cover the 5th string only, and you strum and you accidentally hit the 6th string with it, it doesn't really create a very pleasant sound, as you can hear. So it's best to cover the 6th string and try and aim for only hitting the 5th string, with the idea that if you accidentally do hit the 6th string, it really isn't that bad sounding. So good luck with that chord shape. If at all possible, try and get that finger to bar. If you're having difficulty, you can resort to this shape. I don't mind at all, but you will find it's a bit harder to squash those fingers in on the guitar. If we were barring, let's say, 1 fret higher with an A major chord, that's now become, we've gone from B to C, so that's a C major chord. If we wanted a C minor here, we would just simply revert to an A minor shape chord, and that will give us our C minor chord. The reason I'm pointing that out is because in the first position, when you learn chords, chords like A major and A minor, E major and E minor, D major and D minor, they come in pairs, major and minor. But in the first position, both G major and C major don't really have a minor chord shape there for us. So down here, if we want C minor, after we've played C major, we could bar here and play a C minor there. Similarly, if we're doing a G major and we want a G minor, we can bar on the 3rd fret, hold our E major shape. Remember, that's now given us a G major chord. And for our G minor chord, we simply lift off our middle finger, and there we have it, a G minor chord.